The sky above New Haven burned red and orange as the first plasma bolts tore through the evening air. The peaceful farming colony had no warning and no chance to defend itself against the Kresh Empire's sudden attack. Lisa Carter grabbed her son Daniel and ran toward their home while explosions shook the ground behind them. The 6-year-old boy clutched his mother's hand tightly as buildings erupted into flames all around them. "Mom, what's happening?" Daniel shouted over the screaming and the terrible sounds of destruction. "Don't look back, baby. Just run." Lisa pulled him faster through the chaos. The Kresh were known across the galaxy as the most ruthless conquerors. They left no survivors and took no prisoners. Entire worlds had been reduced to ash by their fleets, and New Haven was just another target in their endless expansion. Kevin Morris, the colony's defense coordinator, tried desperately to get civilians in the shelters, but the attack came too fast and too fierce. His communication device crackled with panicked voices and then went silent as the transmitter tower collapsed in a shower of sparks. Lisa and Daniel reached their home just as another wave of plasma fire streaked across the sky. She threw open the door and pulled Daniel inside toward the kitchen where the old root cellar entrance waited. "Daniel, listen to me very carefully," Lisa said as she opened the heavy wooden door that led down into darkness. "You need to hide down there and stay quiet no matter what you hear. Where are you and Dad going?" Daniel's voice shook with fear. "We'll come get you when it's safe. I promise." Lisa kissed his forehead quickly and guided him down the stone steps. "I love you so much." She closed the door just as her husband called her name from outside. Daniel heard his mother's footsteps running away, and then his father's voice, urgent and afraid. The boy sat in the darkness and listened to the world ending above him, high in the mountain peaks overlooking the colony. Something ancient stirred from its long meditation. Valshara had watched the human settlement grow over the past 20 years with mild interest but mostly indifference, the dragon light being stretched its massive form. Scales that had witnessed the birth and death of civilizations caught the light of the burning colony below. Valshara was old beyond measure, the last of the eternal guardians who once kept peace across the galaxy, but that was long ago, before the plague that killed every other member of Valshara's species, before the guilt and the grief drove the ancient being into isolation. For 1,000 years, Valshara had watched younger races fight and die without intervening, because what was the point when everything eventually turned to dust anyway? The dragon observed the Kresh ships raining fire on the helpless humans below and felt nothing except tired recognition. This was what the younger races did. They destroyed each other in endless cycles of violence. Vulture turned away from the site and prepared to return to meditation when a sound drifted up from the burning colony. It was different from the screams of terror and pain that the dragon had heard countless times before across countless worlds. It was a child's voice, not screaming in fear, but calling out with desperate hope. "Mom, Dad, where are you?" The sound pierced through Valshara's ancient indifference like a blade through silk. Something in that young voice carried a quality the dragon had not heard in centuries. It was not just fear or pain, but love and determination mixed together. The dragon's head turned back toward the colony, against its own will. Those massive eyes that had seen galaxies collide narrowed as they searched for the source of that voice down in the root cellar. Daniel had climbed back up the steps and pushed open the door a crack. He could see through the kitchen window that his house was surrounded by flames now. His parents were nowhere to be seen. The boy made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. He pushed the door fully open and ran outside into the burning nightmare of New Haven. "Mom! Dad!" Daniel shouted as he ran through smoke and fire. His small legs carried him down the street where other colonists lay fallen. The heat was intense and the air was thick and hard to breathe, but Daniel kept running and calling for his parents. He found them near the community center, both lying still on the ground. Daniel dropped to his knees beside them and shook his mother's shoulder. "Mom, wake up. We have to go." Tears streamed down his face, but his voice stayed strong. "Dad, please wake up." Neither parent moved. Daniel tried to pull his mother, but she was too heavy for a 6-year-old to move. He tried his father with the same result. The boy stood between his fallen parents and looked up at the burning sky with tears and smoke stinging his eyes. That was when Velshara descended from the mountains like a falling star. The dragon moved faster than something so large should be able to move. Ancient instincts that had lain dormant for a millennium suddenly roared back to life. Crash ships detected the massive energy signature, and their weapon systems locked onto the new threat. But Velshara was already among the ruins of New Haven. Those ancient eyes found the small human child standing guard over two fallen adults. Daniel looked up at the massive creature that landed before him with scales that shimmered like starlight and eyes that held the weight of ages. The boy should have been terrified, but instead he felt a strange sense of recognition. "Please," Daniel said to the dragon. "Please help them." Velshara stared at this tiny being who had lost everything but still stood firm. Still hoped, still begged not for his own salvation but for those he loved. The dragon's massive head lowered closer to the child. "They are gone. Small one." Velshara's voice resonated in Daniel's mind without words. Ancient and sad, no. Daniel shook his head stubbornly. They can't be gone. The crash bombardment system locked onto Velshara's position and fired. Incendiary weapons that could melt stone and metal screamed down from orbit directly toward the dragon, and the child Velshara moved without thinking. Those massive wings spread wide and wrapped around Daniel's small form as ancient scales that had withstood the fires of dying stars formed a protective cocoon. The world outside exploded into white-hot destruction that turned everything in 100-meter radius into molten sludge inside the protective embrace of scales older than human civilization. Daniel Carter pressed his small hand against the warm surface that shielded him and whispered two words that would change everything. "Thank you." No one had thanked Velshara for anything in 1,000 years. The ancient dragon felt something crack inside its chest, where its heart had turned to stone from centuries of isolation and grief. This small human, who had every reason to despair, instead offered gratitude to a stranger who appeared from nowhere when the bombardment finally stopped. Velshara remained motionless, protecting the child within, while crash ground forces landed to confirm the complete destruction of New Haven Colony. The dragon could hear their harsh voices and scanning equipment getting closer. Commander Dashkal of the crash ground forces approached the massive form with his weapon raised. His scanner showed impossible readings and then displayed an ancient symbol that made his blood run cold. "Fall back." Dashkal ordered his troops immediately. "All units fall back to the ships now." "Commander, we haven't confirmed," one soldier began. "That is an eternal guardian." Dashkal pointed at Velshara. "If the old records are true, that creature could destroy our entire fleet. We leave now." The crash forces retreated rapidly to their ships while Velshara slowly unfurled and looked down at the small human still standing there among the ashes of everything he knew. The dragon could have left then, could have returned to the mountains in solitude, but Daniel looked up at Velshara with eyes that held no fear and asked a simple question. "What's your name?" The ancient being stared at this child who stood in the ruins of his world and wanted to know the name of the creature that saved him. Velshara felt the weight of 1,000 years of isolation pressing down, and for the first time in centuries, felt something else to hope. Velshara carried Daniel away from the burning ruins as the crash ships departed. The dragon's massive wings beat against the smoke-filled air while the small human child rested against scales that had protected him from impossible heat. The boy did not cry or scream during the flight to the mountains. Instead, he pressed his face against the dragon's scales and felt the ancient heartbeat thrumming beneath. Something about that steady rhythm calmed him, even though everything else in his world had shattered. "Where are we going?" Daniel asked through their strange mental connection. "Somewhere safe," Velshara responded, still uncertain why it cared about this one small being's safety. Dragon's Sanctuary was a massive cave, high in the peaks above where New Haven once stood. Crystals lined the walls and ceiling, reflecting light in patterns that shifted with each breath Velshara took. The ancient being had lived here alone for centuries and never expected to bring another living creature into this private space val. Shara set Daniel down gently on a smooth section of stone floor and then backed away. Unsure what to do next, the dragon had not cared for anyone in 1,000 years and had no idea how to handle a human child. Daniel sat on the stone and looked around the cave with wide eyes. His clothes were torn and dirty from the attack, his face streaked with tears and ash. But his expression showed curiosity rather than terror. "This is beautiful," the boy said softly as he watched the light dance across the crystals. Velshara tilted its massive head. Studying this strange small creature, any other being would be demanding answers or breaking down from trauma. But this human child sat calmly and found beauty in a cave while his whole world had just burned. "You should be afraid," Velshara said. "I am afraid," Daniel admitted. "But you saved me, so I think you're a friend." The dragon's ancient heart clenched at that word, friend. No one had called Velshara a friend since before the plague took every other member of its species. The dragon had forgotten what that word even meant days passed in the mountain sanctuary, and Velshara watched Daniel with growing confusion. The child adapted to his situation with remarkable resilience. He explored the cave carefully, asked permission before touching anything, and talked to the dragon about everything he saw. "What are these crystals made of?" Daniel asked on the second day. "They grow from the minerals in the mountain. They respond to certain frequencies of energy," Velshara explained. "Like singing?" Daniel's eyes lit up before the dragon could respond. The boy began humming a tune his mother used to sing. The crystals responded immediately, their light pulsing in rhythm with the melody. Daniel laughed with delight, and Velshara felt something warm spread through its chest. The dragon began to share knowledge it had not spoken aloud in centuries, telling Daniel about other worlds and other species, about the way stars formed and galaxies spun. The child listened with absolute focus and asked questions that showed real understanding. "Why do you live alone up here?" Daniel asked on the third day. Velshara hesitated before answering. "Because everyone I cared about died, and I could not save them. Like my mom and dad," Daniel said quietly. "Yes." The dragon's mental voice carried deep sorrow. "Like them? Does it get easier?" The boy asked. "No," Velshara admitted. "But you learned to carry it." Daniel nodded slowly, and then did something that shocked the ancient being. He walked over and placed his small hand on Velshara's scaled foreleg in a gesture of comfort. The dragon stared at this tiny human, offering sympathy to a creature that had lived for millennia. Meanwhile, far above the planet, the human patrol ship Liberty dropped out of faster-than-light travel and immediately received the automated distress beacon from New Haven. Captain Amy Rodriguez stood on the bridge with her jaw clenched as the first scans came in. "The entire colony is gone," her tactical officer reported with a shaking voice. "No life signs detected. Get me a detailed scan of the area. Look for survivors. Look for anything," Rodriguez ordered Ben Walsh. The ship's xenobiologist studied the energy readings with growing excitement and disbelief. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy signatures in the mountain range. They don't match any known crash technology. Could it be survivors using some kind of shielding?" Rodriguez asked hopefully. "No, these readings are off the scale. Whatever is up there is incredibly powerful." Walsh pulled up his database of known alien species and started searching. Claire Lynn, the trauma specialist and xenopsychologist, moved to stand beside the captain. If there are any survivors, they'll need immediate support. Especially children. We'll find them. Rodriguez promised. Walsh suddenly gasped as his computer displayed a match. Captain, you need to see this. The energy signature matches historical records of a species called the Eternal Guardians. I've heard stories about them, Rodriguez said. But they're supposed to be extinct. All reports suggested extinction. Yes, but this signature is unmistakable. Walsh showed her the data. If there's actually one of these beings on the planet, it could level our entire ship without effort. Rodriguez studied the readings and then looked at her crew. We still have to search for survivors, if something that powerful is down there. We approach carefully, but we don't abandon anyone. The Liberty moved into orbit and launched scanning drones toward the mountains. Velshara detected them immediately and tensed for potential combat. What's wrong? Daniel asked, sensing the dragon's sudden alertness. Your people are coming, Velshara said. They are? Daniel's face brightened with hope. They came to help. They will fear me, the dragon said sadly. They will try to take you away. Daniel frowned and looked up at Velshara with those innocent eyes that seemed to see straight into the ancient being's soul. Why do you think you don't deserve to help people? The question hit Velshara like a physical blow. The dragon recoiled and stared at this small human who somehow understood the core of its pain. Deserving. That was exactly what had driven Velshara into isolation. My people died because I failed them. The dragon's mental voice cracked with emotion. A plague spread through our homeworld, and I could not find a cure. I could not save even one of them. I am a guardian who failed to guard anything. Daniel walked closer and placed both hands on the dragon's massive head. You saved me. One small life against millions lost. Velshara whispered, One life is still a life, Daniel said with simple certainty. My dad used to say that every person matters, that we save who we can and we don't give up. The dragon looked at this child, who had lost his parents but still spoke their wisdom, who faced impossible grief but still offered comfort to others. Velshara realized something profound in that moment. Humans were different. They carried their pain but did not let it destroy their capacity for hope and kindness. They grieved deeply but still chose to connect with others. They were so fragile and so small, but somehow they were also incredibly strong. The scanning drones got closer to the cave entrance, and Velshara made a decision. The dragon would face Daniel's people and return him to them even if it meant facing their fear and anger. Because this small human had shown the ancient being that hiding from pain was not the same as healing from it. Daniel, Velshara said gently, your people will be here soon. Will you stay? The boy asked. The dragon looked down at those hopeful eyes and felt something shift deep inside. For 1,000 years, Velshara had believed the universe was better off without its involvement. But this one small human had shown the ancient being something different. Maybe the universe needed those who had known loss to stand up and protect others from experiencing the same pain. Maybe carrying grief did not mean giving up on hope. Maybe one saved life did matter even against the backdrop of millions lost. Yes, Velshara said finally. I will stay. Daniel smiled and hugged the dragon's leg, completely unafraid, completely trusting. And Velshara felt the frozen places in its ancient heart begin to thaw. The Liberty shuttle launched toward the mountain with Captain Rodriguez, Ben Walsh, and Claire Lynn aboard. They came armed but also carrying hope. Prepared for anything but unprepared for what they would actually find: a child and a legend waiting together in a crystal cave. Both of them healing, both of them learning that connection was stronger than isolation, and that hope could survive even the darkest fires. The Liberty shuttle descended through the mountain air with careful precision. Captain Amy Rodriguez gripped her sidearm but kept it holstered, hoping they would not need weapons against whatever awaited them in the cave. Energy readings are stable, Ben Walsh reported from his portable scanner. Whatever is in there isn't showing aggression. Claire, Lynn checked her medical supplies and prepared herself mentally for what they might find. If any child survived the New Haven massacre, the trauma would be severe and require extremely careful handling. The shuttle landed on a flat area near the cave entrance, and the three humans stepped out cautiously. Rodriguez took point while Walsh and Lynn followed close behind. The cave mouth loomed before them like the entrance to another world. "Hello?" Rodriguez called out. "This is Captain Amy Rodriguez of the human patrol ship Liberty. We're here to help any survivors." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, a small figure appeared in the cave entrance that made all three adults freeze and shocked. Daniel Carter walked out into the sunlight. Dirty and tired, but alive and smiling. "You came," he said with genuine joy. Claire Lynn moved forward instinctively, but Rodriguez held up a hand to stop her. "Daniel?" the captain asked gently. "Are you hurt?" "I'm okay," Daniel said. "Velshara protected me." "Velshara?" Walsh whispered, pulling up his records. Again, a massive shadow filled the cave entrance as the dragon emerged. Velshara moved slowly and deliberately, keeping its body language non-threatening despite the fact that the ancient being could destroy the shuttle and everyone near it without effort. Rodriguez and her crew stood frozen as they took in the sight of a creature from legend. Scales that seemed to contain entire galaxies, eyes that held the weight of ages, a presence that made every instinct scream both danger and awe. "Don't be scared," Daniel said, walking back to stand beside the dragon's massive foreleg. "Velshara is my friend. The dragon saved me when the bad ships attacked our home." Claire Lynn found her voice first, her training in xenopsychology helping her process what she was seeing. "Hello, Velshara. Thank you for protecting Daniel." The dragon's head lowered slightly in acknowledgement. The small one showed courage when his world burned. "I could not let such spirit be extinguished." Walsh's hand shook as he recorded everything. "Captain, that's really an eternal guardian. The last one. According to all records, they were supposed to be extinct. I am the last," Velshara confirmed. "My species died long ago." Daniel looked up at the dragon with sad understanding. Then back at the humans. "Velshara is lonely like I am now. We're both alone." That simple statement from a child who had lost everything broke through the last of Claire's professional distance. She knelt down and opened her arms. "Daniel, would it be okay if I gave you a hug?" The boy hesitated, looked at Velshara, who nodded encouragement, then walked over and let Claire embrace him. The moment the specialist's arms wrapped around him, Daniel's composure finally cracked and he began to cry. "It's okay," Claire whispered. "Let it out. You're safe now." Rodriguez contacted the Liberty. "This is the captain. We have one survivor from New Haven, a child named Daniel Carter, and we have contact with what appears to be an eternal guardian. Requesting guidance." Admiral Peter Grant's voice came back within minutes, stern and commanding. "Captain Rodriguez, secure the child immediately and maintain distance from the alien entity. We're sending a full security team." "Sir, the entity saved the child's life," Rodriguez protested. "That changes nothing. We cannot allow something that powerful to remain free. Secure the child and await backup." Grant ordered. Rodriguez looked at Daniel crying in Claire's arms, then at Velshara watching them with those ancient sorrowful eyes. She made a decision that would define her career. "Admiral, respectfully, I need time to assess the situation before taking action," Rodriguez said. "That's an order." "Captain." Grant's voice held warning. Rodriguez ended the communication and looked at her crew. "Ben, Claire, what's your assessment?" Walsh spoke first. "The dragon has shown no aggression and had multiple opportunities to harm us. The energy readings suggest it could have destroyed our entire ship, but it chose to protect a human child instead." Claire held Daniel close. "This child bonded with Velshara during extreme trauma. Separating them abruptly could cause serious psychological damage, and frankly, the dragon appears to be processing its own grief. You see it too? Rodriguez asked. Look at its body language. The way it watches Daniel, Claire said. That's not a predator. That's a being who found something precious and is terrified of losing it. Daniel pulled away from Claire and walked back to Velshara. The child placed his small hand on the dragon's scales and looked back at the captain. Please don't take me away from Velshara. The dragon needs me. Small one. You should go with your people, Velshara said gently. They can care for you properly, but who will care for you? Daniel asked. That question hung in the air like a weight. The dragon who had lived for millennia alone had no answer. No one had cared for Velshara in 1,000 years, and the ancient being had forgotten what it felt like to be cared for. Rodriguez holstered her weapon completely and took a step forward. Velshara, may I ask you something? You may ask, the dragon responded. What do you want? Rodriguez said simply, not what you think should happen, but what do you actually want? Velshara was silent for a long moment, processing emotions it had buried for centuries. I do not want to be alone anymore, the dragon finally admitted. This small human saw me not as a monster or myth, but as someone who could help, someone who mattered. I have forgotten what that felt like. Daniel, Rodriguez knelt beside the boy. What do you want? I want to stay with Velshara, Daniel said firmly. My parents are gone, and I'm scared and sad. But Velshara understands. The dragon lost everyone, too. We help each other feel less alone. Claire Lynn wiped tears from her own eyes. Captain, I think they're both right. They're healing each other. Ben Walsh looked at his scanner readings and then at the legendary creature before them. If we try to separate them by force, I don't think Velshara would fight us. The dragon would just let us take Daniel, and then it would return to the mountains alone. And Daniel would lose the one being who understands his grief, Claire added. While Velshara would lose the first connection it's made in a millennium. Rodriguez stood and faced Velshara directly. I'm going to do something that will probably end my career, she said. But it's the right thing. Will you come with us aboard the Liberty? You and Daniel together? The dragon's eyes widened in surprise. You would allow this? You saved a human child when you didn't have to, Rodriguez said. You've shown more compassion than many humans I've known. Yes, I would allow it more than that. I would welcome it. The Admiral ordered, Walsh began. I know what he ordered. Rodriguez cut him off. But I also know what's right. And what's right is keeping a traumatized child with the being who saved his life and understands his pain. Velshara looked down at Daniel, who smiled up at the dragon with complete trust and hope. The ancient being felt something it had not felt since before its species died. Purpose. I accept, Velshara said. But I do not wish to bring conflict to your people. Let me handle that, Rodriguez said, with more confidence than she felt. Ben, send a message to the Admiral. Tell him we're bringing both the survivor and the Eternal Guardian aboard, and that I take full responsibility. Walsh sent the message, and they all waited for the explosion. It came within seconds. Captain Rodriguez, you are directly violating orders. Grant's voice boomed through the communication system. Stand down immediately or face court-martial. Rodriguez took a deep breath and made her final decision. Admiral, I'm going to do something that every officer is taught, but few ever have the courage to do. I'm broadcasting this conversation on all channels, so every ship and station and range can hear it. She switched the communication to wide broadcast. This is Captain Amy Rodriguez of the Liberty. I want to tell you all about something remarkable that happened. When the Kresh Empire destroyed New Haven Colony, they left no survivors. Or so they thought. Rodriguez walked over and put her hand on Daniel's shoulder. One child survived because an ancient being came down from the mountains and protected him with its own body. Velshara, the last of the Eternal Guardians. Saved a human child who had lost everything. Walsh's scanner showed dozens of ships picking up the broadcast. The story was spreading across human space in real time. Now our command wants to separate them. To treat Velshara as a threat despite the fact that the dragon chose compassion over isolation, Rodriguez continued. I'm asking all of you to witness this moment and to help me protect both Daniel Carter and Velshara. Daniel looked up at the captain with wide eyes. Then at the dragon. You're helping us? Yes, Rodriguez said simply. Because it's right. Velshara felt something crack inside its ancient heart. This human was risking her career and possibly her freedom to protect a child and a dragon she had just met. The Eternal Guardian had spent 1,000 years believing the younger races were all the same. All violent and selfish, but this one human showed courage and compassion that rivaled anything Velshara had seen in the old days. Rodriguez showed the dragon what Daniel had been trying to teach it all along. Humans were special not because they were strong or because they never failed. The Liberty's cargo bay had been hastily modified to accommodate Velshara's massive form. The dragon settled carefully into the space while engineers and crew members watched with expressions mixing fear and wonder. Daniel sat on a crate near the dragon's head, his small form dwarfed by the ancient being, but completely comfortable in that presence. Claire Lynn sat with him, quietly assessing his mental state while marveling at the bond between child and dragon. How are you feeling? Claire asked gently. Tired, Daniel admitted, and sad, but also kind of okay because Velshara is here. The dragon's massive eye focused on the child with unmistakable affection. The small one has been very brave. So have you, Daniel said. Reaching out to touch the dragon's scales, Captain Rodriguez stood on the command deck, watching multiple communication channels light up with responses to her broadcast. Some supported her decision, but many demanded she follow orders and secure the alien threat. Ben Walsh entered the bridge with his portable computer. Captain, you need to see this. The broadcast reached civilian networks and it's spreading like wildfire. People are calling Daniel and Velshara heroes. Rodriguez looked at the data stream showing thousands of messages, images and videos being shared across human space. The story of a dragon saving a human child resonated with something deep in human culture. We have a problem, though, Walsh continued. The Kresh Empire detected our presence and they know Velshara is alive. They're sending a battle group. Of course they are, Rodriguez muttered. Then activated ship-wide communication. All hands battle stations. Prepare for possible Kresh engagement in the cargo bay. Velshara has head lifted at the announcement. The Kresh return? Looks that way, Claire said, moving protectively closer to Daniel. The dragon's scales rippled with energy. I will not allow them to harm the small one or this ship. Velshara, Daniel said quietly. If you fight them, will you have to kill them? The ancient being looked down at the child, who somehow always asked the most difficult questions. If they attack with lethal force, yes. Is there another way? Daniel asked, My dad used to say that killing should always be the last choice, not the first one. Velshara felt the wisdom in those words. Wisdom that came from Daniel's father, through the child's innocent voice. What would you want me to do, small one? I don't know, Daniel admitted. I just know that I don't want you to become what they are. The dragon contemplated this, realizing that a 6-year-old human child understood something that had escaped Velshara for centuries. Violence answered with violence only created cycles of pain. The Eternal Guardians had once known this truth, but the dragon had forgotten it. In its grief, Admiral Grant's face appeared on the bridge view screen, his expression angry, but also conflicted. Captain Rodriguez, explain yourself. Admiral, I acted to protect the child and honor an ally, Rodriguez said firmly. Velshara saved Daniel Carter's life and has shown nothing but peaceful intent. That creature could destroy fleets. Grant argued, yes, and it chose to save one child instead, Rodriguez countered. That tells me everything I need to know about its character. Grant was about to respond when another officer interrupted him. Admiral, we're receiving thousands of messages from civilian and military personnel supporting Captain Rodriguez's actions. Public opinion doesn't change military protocol, Grant said. But his voice had less certainty. With respect, sir. Sometimes military protocol needs to adapt to reality, Rodriguez said. We have a chance to make an ally of a being that represents the best of what the galaxy once was. Before Grant could respond, the crash battle group dropped out of faster-than-light travel on the edge of the system. 6 warships bristling with weapons that had reduced countless worlds to ash. Crash vessels are hailing us, the communications officer reported. They demand we surrender the Eternal Guardian or be destroyed. Rodriguez looked at the tactical display showing her single patrol ship against 6 crash warships. The math was not favorable, Admiral. Requesting immediate backup. Grant's expression hardened. The nearest fleet is 4 hours away. You need to buy time. Understood. Rodriguez ended the communication and activated ship-wide broadcast again. This is the captain. All crew to battle stations. We will protect both Daniel Carter and Velshara against any threat in the cargo bay. Velshara's entire body glowed with building energy. Captain, I can engage the crash ships. I am faster and more powerful than their weapons. Rodriguez's voice came back through the communication system. Velshara, I appreciate the offer, but we're going to try something else first. Daniel stood up and walked closer to the dragon. Captain Rodriguez is trying to find another way. There may not be another way, Velshara said gently. Then we'll make one. Daniel said with the absolute certainty that only children possess. The Liberty moved to intercept the crash battle group while broadcasting on all channels. Rodriguez appeared on view screens across both human and crash ships. I am Captain Amy Rodriguez of the human patrol ship Liberty. She began. You've come for the Eternal Guardian aboard my ship, but before we fight, I want you to know something. The crash commander appeared on screen, his reptilian features showing contempt. We do not negotiate with lesser species. Then just listen, Rodriguez continued. Your forces destroyed New Haven Colony, killed hundreds of innocent people, including families and children. One child survived because Velshara, the last Eternal Guardian, chose to protect him. She switched the video feed to show Daniel sitting with the dragon in the cargo bay. This is Daniel Carter. He's 6 years old. He lost his parents and his home because of your attack. And the ancient being you fear so much came down from the mountains to save his life. Sentiment is weakness. The crash commander sneered. No, Rodriguez said firmly. Compassion is strength. Velshara could have stayed hidden. Could have let the galaxy burn like it has for 1,000 years. But one child's courage and hope brought the Guardian back. And I will not let you destroy that. Ben Walsh whispered from his station. Captain, 6 more human ships just dropped out of FDL. They heard your broadcast and came to help. Rodriguez felt her throat tighten with emotion. It seems others agree with me, Commander. You face not just my ship now, but 7 human vessels willing to defend a child and a dragon. The crash commander laughed harshly. 13 ships would not be enough against our battle group. Then you misunderstand. Admiral Grant's voice came across all channels as his own fleet arrived. 20 warships appearing in formation. Captain Rodriguez broadcast her message across our entire network. Every ship in range heard about a dragon saving a human child. And every one of us is here to make sure the child and that guardian stay safe. The tactical display showed the crash battle group, now facing nearly 30 human ships, various classes. Grant's voice continued. We humans have a saying. Commander, we protect our own, and anyone who stands with us becomes our own, in the cargo bay. Daniel looked up at Velshara with shining eyes. They came to help us. The dragon stared at the tactical display showing dozens of human ships, arriving to defend one child and one ancient being. They risk everything for us, because that's what humans do, Claire said softly. We fight for each other, and for those who can't fight for themselves. Velshara felt something fundamental shift in its understanding of the universe. For 1,000 years, the dragon had believed all younger races were the same, violent and selfish and destructive. But humans were different in a way that defied the ancient being's cynicism. They were willing to die for a child they had never met and a dragon from their myths. They chose compassion when logic dictated fear. They offered friendship when wisdom suggested distance. They were so fragile and so small, but their spirits were immense. Captain, Velshara's voice resonated through the ship's communication system. I do not want bloodshed. May I speak directly to the Crash Commander? Rodriguez nodded. Opening a channel, Velshara's presence filled every view screen. The ancient being's voice carried the weight of millennia. Commander of the Crash, I am Velshara. Last of the Eternal Guardians, you came here expecting to face a myth. But instead, I offer you a truth. The Crash Commander's expression showed uncertainty for the first time. Legends were supposed to stay legends. I have lived long enough to see empires rise and fall like waves on a shore. Velshara continued. I have seen countless species choose conquest over cooperation, and I have watched them destroy themselves in the process. The Crash Empire follows that same path. We are strong. The commander protested. You are feared, Velshara corrected. But fear is not strength. I know this because I spent 1,000 years alone, feared and isolated. Believing that pain and power were the only truths in the universe, Daniel placed his small hand on the dragon's scales, offering silent support. Then I met a human child who had lost everything. Velshara's voice softened, and instead of becoming bitter or cruel, he offered me kindness instead of demanding revenge. He asked me not to become what you are. That is real strength. Commander, the Crash ships held their position. Weapons armed but not firing. You can destroy this fleet, Velshara acknowledged. But you cannot destroy what humans represent. They will keep coming, keep fighting, keep choosing compassion even when it costs them. Because that is their nature. Velshara's scales glowed brighter. I offer you a choice. The Liberty returned to the main human station with an escort of 20 ships. News of the standoff with the Crash had spread across the galaxy, and dozens of species watched to see what would happen. Next, Admiral Grant met Captain Rodriguez in the station's command center. His expression unreadable. Captain, you disobeyed direct orders and risked your ship and crew. Yes. Sir, I did. Rodriguez stood at attention, ready to face consequences. You also prevented a war, formed an unprecedented alliance with an Eternal Guardian, and reminded everyone in this fleet what we're supposed to be fighting for. Grant continued. Effective immediately. You're promoted to commander and given command of a diplomatic vessel. Rodriguez blinked in surprise. Sir? We need someone who understands that strength comes in many forms, Grant said. Then his voice softened. You did good, Rodriguez. Damn good. In the station's medical bay, Claire Lynn continued her assessment of Daniel, while Velshara watched through the observation window. The child's physical health was stable, but the psychological impact of losing his parents and his home would take time to process. How is he? Velshara asked through the intercom. Remarkably resilient, Claire said. But he'll need long-term support and stability. Daniel looked up at the window, where the dragon's massive form filled the view. Can Velshara come in? The medical bay is too small, Claire said gently. But we're moving you to bigger quarters soon where you can be together. The door opened and a human official entered. Jake Morrison from the Colonial Council. He carried documentation and an expression of bureaucratic determination, Dr. Lin. I need to discuss Daniel Carter's custody arrangements, Morrison said. Daniel's expression became wary. What does custody mean? It means figuring out who will take care of you. Claire explained carefully. Morrison pulled up his tablet. We have several families willing to foster Daniel. All good people with stable homes. No, Daniel said firmly. Morrison looked surprised. Son, you can't stay on a military station. I stay with Velshara. Daniel crossed his arms. The dragon needs me. Dragons don't need human children, Morrison said in a tone meant to be reasonable, but came out condescending through the intercom. Velshara's voice resonated with quiet intensity. You are wrong. I need Daniel more than I have needed anything in 1,000 years. Morrison turned to the window, clearly uncomfortable addressing a legendary being. With respect, a child needs a proper home with human guardians. Not living on military vessels with what? Rodriguez entered the medical bay. With the being who saved his life? Who understands his grief? Who has formed a bond that both of them need to heal? Commander Rodriguez, surely you see that this situation is irregular. Morrison protested. Everything about this situation is irregular, Rodriguez agreed. A 6-year-old boy survived the destruction of his entire colony, found hope in a dragon from myth. And together, they taught an entire fleet what courage really means. Daniel stood up on the medical bed. My dad used to say that family isn't just blood. It's who shows up when you need them. Velshara showed up. The dragon protected me when everything was on fire and scary. Morrison softened slightly. I understand you've been through trauma. But let me ask you something, Rodriguez interrupted. Have you ever lost everyone you loved in one night? Because both Daniel and Velshara have. They understand each other in ways that no foster family could match. Claire added her professional opinion. Separating them now could cause severe psychological damage to both. Yes, even to an ancient dragon. Grief is universal, and so is the need for connection. This is unprecedented. Morrison said weakly. Good, Rodriguez replied. We need more unprecedented things in this galaxy. Here's what's going to happen. I'm taking custody of Daniel. He'll live aboard my new diplomatic vessel with quarters large enough for him and Velshara to be together. Daniel's eyes went wide. Really? Really? Rodriguez knelt down to his level. If that's what you want. Yes. Daniel threw his arms around the commander. Thank you. Morrison looked at Velshara through the window. And you agree to this? To living among humans and helping raise a human child? The dragon's ancient eyes showed depths of emotion that had been hidden for centuries. This small one gave me something I thought I had lost forever. A reason to care. A purpose beyond simply existing. Yes, I agree to this. One, choose this. Morrison made notes on his tablet. This will require extensive documentation and oversight. Document away, Rodriguez said. But Daniel stays with us. Over the following weeks, the new arrangements took shape. Rodriguez's diplomatic vessel, named the Dawn's Promise, had been designed with a large central atrium specifically for Velshara. Daniel's quarters connected directly to that space. Boy adapted to ship life with the resilience that had already become his defining characteristic. He attended classes with other children via remote learning, made friends among the crew, and spent every evening with Velshara learning about the galaxy. Tell me about the Eternal Guardians. Daniel asked one evening while sitting on a platform near the dragon's head. We were mediators and protectors. Velshara began. We helped younger species resolve conflicts and learn to coexist. Why did they stop? Daniel asked. They did not stop, they died. Velshara's voice carried ancient sorrow. A plague struck our homeworld. It killed every one of my people within a year. I searched desperately for a cure, but found nothing. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Is that why you lived alone in the mountains? Yes, the dragon admitted. I believed I had failed my people, that I did not deserve to help others after failing those who needed me most. But you didn't fail them on purpose, Daniel said with a child's simple logic. You tried really hard. My teacher says that trying your best is what matters, even if things don't work out. Velshara looked down at this small human who carried his own grief, but still offered comfort. Your teacher is wise. Did you blame yourself? Daniel asked. Every day for 1,000 years. Velshara said, my counselor says that sometimes bad things happen, and it's nobody's fault. Daniel said quietly. She says my parents died because the crash are mean. Not because I didn't try hard enough to save them. The dragon's ancient heart ached for this child who understood so much pain. Your counselor is right. And perhaps mine applies to me as well. So we both learned that bad things can happen, and we can't always stop them. Daniel said, but we can help each other feel better and make sure new bad things don't happen to other people. Velshara felt tears forming in eyes that had not cried in a millennium. When did you become so wise, small one? I'm not wise, Daniel giggled. I just think about stuff a lot. Rodriguez entered the atrium and smiled at the sight of boy and dragon in deep conversation. Daniel, time for bed. Can Velshara tell me one more story? Daniel asked, one short one. Rodriguez agreed. Velshara told a tale of ancient times when different species learned to work together to build something beautiful. Daniel listened with sleepy attention, and when the story ended, he hugged the dragon's scales. Good night, Velshara. I love you, the boy said. Naturally, those 3 words struck the ancient being like lightning. No one had said them to Velshara since before the plague. The dragon had forgotten what it felt like to be loved. I love you too, small one, Velshara whispered back. Sleep well. Rodriguez took Daniel to his quarters while the dragon remained in the atrium, processing emotions that had been locked away for centuries. Velshara had come down from the mountain to save one child, and in doing so had saved itself from an eternity of isolation months. Past and the Dawn's promise traveled across human space and beyond. Velshara and Daniel became ambassadors of a new kind of relationship between humans and the older species of the galaxy. They visited colonies that had been attacked by the crash and offered protection. They mediated disputes between human settlements. They demonstrated that power used for protection rather than conquest could change everything. Daniel grew and learned, still carrying the grief of losing his parents, but no longer crushed by it. He spoke at schools about his experiences and always emphasized his father's wisdom about saving who you can and never giving up. Velshara discovered that sharing knowledge and offering guidance brought satisfaction that isolation never could. The dragon began documenting the history of the Eternal Guardians so their wisdom would not be lost one evening. Daniel found Velshara staring at a star chart. What are you looking at? The coordinates of my home world, the dragon said. I have not returned since the plague. Do you want to go back? Daniel asked. I am afraid of what I will find, Velshara admitted. Only emptiness and memories of failure. Daniel climbed up onto his usual platform and sat beside the dragon's head. My counselor says that sometimes we need to face the places that hurt us to really heal. Your counselor is very wise, Velshara said. Would it help if I came with you? Daniel offered. The dragon looked at this small human who had already given so much. You would do that? Of course, Daniel said simply. You came with me when my home was gone. I'll come with you to yours. Rodriguez agreed to the journey, and the Dawns promise set course for the Eternal Guardian homeworld when they arrived. Velshara stood at the viewport and stared at a planet that had once been vibrant with life. It's beautiful, Daniel said softly. The world was indeed beautiful. Nature had reclaimed the cities and turned them into